Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Robbie Basel Show. It is Friday, May 31st of 2024, episode, I believe, number 99. Hello, I'm Robbie Basel. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you see already, make sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe. It would be really appreciated if y'all come out here, hit the subscribe button. And while you're at it, make sure to click the link from the last video. If you like the Premier League and want to get the full recap and missed Tuesday's video, hit one of the links in the description. It should take you straight to that video. It's 2 hours long, which we didn't know it was going to be that long, but listen, it do be like that sometimes. Additionally, just wanted to give some updates on the schedule for upcoming videos. The next 2 weeks, the Tuesday video will be talking about soccer. That's just a warning now. Will be the predominant topic of the show. Next week, we have some international World Cup qualifiers to talk about. I'm very excited. We get to talk about Asia, the terrible teams in CONCACAF. We got freaking Africa. If you remember, I have not talked about some of this stuff since November. I'm very excited. Okay, I'm probably too excited for this. But that's also the 100th episode, so I will be saying something in the beginning, probably. We might be having to preview the Stanley Cup Finals, and hopefully I get a guest to preview the Stanley Cup Finals or the NBA Finals, or both, with me. So you will get updates on people possibly joining the show. Hopefully I know by Monday what the hell is going on. Because, listen, we don't know. I mean, the NBA Finals begins next week. So you will probably be hearing about the NBA Finals sometime, like a full bigger preview or a mention of it, sometime within Tuesday's video. I'm going to briefly talk about it here today because there's like 7 topics to talk about today. I'm very excited to talk about each of them individually. But yeah, next and the following week we will be doing our Copa America and Euros predictions. I'm very excited. Hopefully, the goal here is to not have everything like go to crap and like all the graphics bug out. But that's the hope. We will see. And I am doing all my research and have everything ready to go for. I don't even know what the date of the video is going to be, but you will see that video. So let me just talk to you about now. So the usual like week review will be on the 7th as normal. The 4th of this month, of June will be World Cup qualifying and NBA or Stanley Cup Finals or both. We don't know. And then the following week on the 11th is going to be the Copa America Euros prediction video. Hopefully should be in both. And then the 14th, I actually going to be recording the video the day before because something is on the 14th. So I don't know what that video is going to be yet. And then the following week, we'll probably be talking about Euros and all that other fun stuff. And then eventually in July, there will be a full World Cup. I'll probably talk about World Cup qualifying recap eventually in one of the upcoming videos. So we'll see. But, starting with the soccer theme, I think this is something we need to start with. Because there was a little event that happened on Tuesday that I didn't know about until last night. I'm hoping that a lot of you here are familiar with geography, or hopefully a little bit of history. More with the geography part, though. What country? I'll just give you a second. Do you know what country is next to Canada to the east? And how they don't have anything, a lot of sporting related things going on. That country is Greenland, a country that is predominantly owned, I believe, by Denmark. Well, Greenland, essentially, has filed to try to be a part of CONCACAF. That happened on Tuesday, which totally went under the radar because no one was talking about it. And then I found out last night. I was talking to a friend about it this morning. I'm like, Greenland? What? This is a possibility, chat. if they are able to qualify for the World Cup, because I don't know, because some like territories can't qualify for the World Cup, like Martinique and Guadeloupe can't qualify because they're part of France, or like what's another one? There's like some islands scattered around the world that can't qualify because they're owned by somebody else. It's the same thing here. Can Greenland? I know Greenland can play in the Copa America and the Gold Cup if they get into CONCACAF. But will they play in the like? Imagine a World Cup qualifying first round. You get the U.S. Virgin Islands going to play Greenland in the middle of like January. That would be absurd, and I would love it because it's CONCACAF. It's weird. Nothing makes any sense. It's a perfect duo. I mean, Greenland not getting into UEFA was funny because, like, UEFA has, like, Gibraltar, which, if you don't know where Gibraltar is, just look it up on a map. They had Gibraltar. What's another one? I mean, Northern Ireland makes sense. What's another small? Liechtenstein? Like, come on. Like, what are we doing here, lads? Like, you let Liechtenstein, like, it's fun. I'm smiling because it's funny to say. You got Liechtenstein, Luxembourg out here. Gibraltar, that's another one. I know they're like tiny like nations, but I don't really know if they're like owned by other countries. I'm not the biggest historian in terms of like Gibraltar because let's be honest, I have some things to do in my life. I can't look up the whole history of Gibraltar out here real quick. But in all seriousness, Greenland and CONCACAF, I kind of like it. It just makes CONCACAF more weird than it already is. I don't mind that because it's pretty cool. Will it happen? I mean, this is what we found on this. I found on Instagram yesterday that the manager of the Greenland national team put up an ad saying, Greenland, join us on our journey to join CONCACAF. God, I love this because Greenland is playing a friendly tomorrow in Turkey against Turkmenistan, which makes perfect sense. What? Listen, you don't see Greenland come out here playing Bermuda. Screw that. Let's go play Turkmenistan. Love it. I would want to watch it. I don't know what the hell is gonna happen, but yeah, Greenland, just something you guys should know about. Greenland possibly joining CONCACAF. Like, we don't know a lot about it, but we know they put in a proposition or like a proposal to join CONCACAF. We know that their nation, whatever you want to call it, is like 50,000 people or something, and their national team stadium is not very large. But I think it's about 2,500 people. And the league, they actually do have something. I watch a YouTuber, Zealand. I've talked about him already a couple of these videos, I feel like now. He was going to do something in Greenland like 2 years ago, which is how I found out about that this place even had a league. It's called the Greenland Cup, and they play it like I think it's like a month or two, and that's just the league is just that. Greenland possibly joining CONCACAF. More on that when we find out more. It probably won't. It probably will be a while before we hear something about it. But that's just the weird fact of the day. Greenland joining CONCACAF. Another weird fact that we found out today, well, yesterday, was that FIFA Pro, or FIFA, is it FIFA Pro? I don't know. And the it's basically the player reps, or like it's kind of like the players or the player unions. Um, Essentially, they might cause a complete disruption of the Club World Cup, and I'm all for this because we talked about in the last video what I think it was a video or two ago with Newcastle and Tottenham. No, this was last week's video. Last Friday's video on the 24th, I talked about how Newcastle and Tottenham were going to Australia for an end-of-season friendly, some BS like that. Well, FIFA Pro have essentially, we'll pull this up, the ESPN article. Shout out to ESPN. That's who I work for, of course. That's why I'm using their source. Essentially, you can see all the ads. I don't care. Okay. They are threatening the Club World Cup, and They're ready to go on strike over concerns the playing calendar is overloaded. So here's my issue with this. Okay, hold on. We talked about it last time, or a couple of videos ago now. The issue with this could be prevented if the owners of the clubs didn't want to line their own pockets so much. I'm closing this. Well, I'll read you what the what the article said, because this is getting ridiculous. And more or less, the fact that I have to talk about this again is already absurd. You already know this is a significant problem. Now, the situation is getting bad, and if you remember when I talked about the demand on players is high enough as it already is. You can see players going international breaks. You will see players this year, like Mbappe, for example. His season started in August. His season ended in late May, or like mid-May-ish. Now he gets a small break. Cool. He's going to Madrid to announce the signing, which we will probably be talking about on Tuesday, along possibly with the Champions League final. And following that, he will be going to Euros training camp for France. Then he could possibly be playing in the Olympics, which ends in late July. And then he goes to PSG. They don't get enough rest. Now, sometimes fans give players a lot of crap because, yeah, they play a match once a week. Have you seen the training these dudes go through now? The endurance training and all this other stuff? I'm siding with the players. That usually doesn't happen. When you know that me, a person who usually doesn't side with the players, is siding with the players, you know this thing is bad. And this actually could get really bad. Because if the players protest the Club World Cup, this could become a major problem. Because, listen, this player's is leading a joint lawsuit at this point with several European leagues. This is already going on. I mean, they're already going lawsuits against, first of all, the Premier League deserves to get sued at this point, because what the hell were they thinking with the friendlies in Australia and other friendlies and all this other ridiculousness, especially at this point of the year. If you want to take your top star, this is not how you run friendlies. If you want to do friendlies at the end of the season, use academy players you don't care about and just send them to like Turkmenistan or whatever. Or wherever friendlies be held. What would be a country that held friendlies in? United States. Done. Take the Tottenham under-19s and put them up. I get it's not the best viewing pleasure in the world, but it's better than essentially killing your players. And while I get to take the sip of Snapple, which is like the greatest drink this is like my favorite drink now, hit the like button, subscribe to the video. Hopefully one day I can get sponsored by Snapple, because that would be like a dream sponsor. That or Minute Maid. I wouldn't prefer one over the other. Fire drink. Back to what we were talking about. This whole like mess. The players have a great argument, but in the higher ups really don't. I'm interested to see how. I'm not gonna really talk about it that much because we have more things to talk about. But it's just something to watch for in the future, because we now know how bad this could possibly get. A Club World Cup not being played because players are striking at UEFA, you could be losing the best teams in the draw. That's amazing that this is a possibility. Our final soccer topic, we unfortunately don't have a graphic for it because it kept crashing, is the Champions League final. We are finally here. I made Champions League prediction after Champions League prediction. I may have been completely wrong on some of them, including Borussia Dortmund, multiple times. But we finally made it to the Champions League final, which is tomorrow afternoon. It is Real Madrid and the swan song of Toni Kroos, the God squad that will be adding two of the great forwards of the current generation and the future in like a month, versus the underdog story that everyone will be rooting for in Borussia Dortmund in the swan song Last Dance for Borussia Dortmund with Marco Reus. What do I think is going to happen? Real Madrid are the better team on paper. But Borussia Dortmund, in every one of their knockout matches, maybe other than PSV, were the underdog and were able to come out on top. And how did they do it? They didn't change their style of play. They played the way that they're supposed to. Focus play down the wings. You had players like Jadon Sancho continue to emerge with this Dortmund squad. And their attack has been great. Midfield's been great. They have a great goalkeeper. I think his name is Kubel. Is it Kubel? Kubel? I don't know. I keep saying it wrong regardless. He's been great. Their goalkeeping has been solid. Matt Hummels, if you remember Matt Hummels, is still at Dortmund, which is insanity. He's old and unfortunately will not be in the Euro squad. We'll talk about that next week. They'll be going up against Real Madrid, who have had the tougher road, that's for sure. They've beaten Manchester City. They've beaten Bayern. They almost had to face Arsenal. Like, that side of the draw was more competitive. And coming out of that side was Real Madrid, led by Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham, Rodrigo. They actually have Courtois coming back. He'll be starting in goal tomorrow. A defense filled with stars that you will know who they are. A midfield trio that can only be described as Picasso-esque. I know that's Italian. Don't kill me. And they just do everything right under Carlo Ancelotti. What am I expecting? I'm expecting Real Madrid to win the Champions League final. And I think a lot of people will agree with that. But you cannot immediately on paper rule out Dortmund. If we've learned anything, that can't happen. I think Dortmund are going to be on the front foot early. They're going to be playing with nothing to lose. The only thing they'll have to lose is that it's possible that they lose their best player or their one of their greats of club history and doesn't give them a trophy before it goes to like MLS or wherever else Marco Reus is going to go. But for Madrid, I think they're going to be the ones that come out on top. They haven't been great at the start of some matches, particularly against Bayern. And they always love to settle things late. I think we will be seeing something similar to that. My final score prediction of the Champions League final is Real Madrid 2, Borussia Dortmund 1. I think Dortmund will go score early. It'll be very similar to the script of the Bayern match, the Bayern second leg. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Bayern scored early and in the second half, led by Alphonso Davies, who's a substitute that came on for an injured Serge Gnabry. He scored. But then Real Madrid scored 2 thanks to Joselu. I think is it Joselu? I'm calling him Joselu because that's how most people call him. Thanks to Joselu, brace, Real Madrid are through. I think we'll be seeing something not identical, but semi-similar. I think a much earlier goal, a first half goal from Borussia Dortmund, and a first half goal from Real Madrid will set us at 1-1 at the break, but a decently late winner. I'm going to say in about the 75th, 8 to 80th minute range. And if I had to pick someone to score the winner, I'm going to say it's Rodrigo. I'd have to pick Rodrigo. I'm not picking Bellingham for this, or Vinicius, because I think it's just too predictable. But a guy who's been really struggling to put the ball in the back of the net in the Champions League was Rodrigo. If you look, how many chances he's had against Bayern, how many chances he had against City to put one away and was unable to do it. I think this could be the time, finally, for Rodrigo. A team that can be really changing their front line to set up as Rodrigo and Vinicius and then Mbappe, with Endrick behind Mbappe. This team is good. This is the last year that you could really maybe count out Real Madrid in a final. Because the squad they're going to have next year. I know they're going to be missing a midfield piece. But you have Endrick, Mbappe, Vinny, Rodrigo. That's ridiculous. And I am terrified. We'll talk about all the other transfers when the transfer window opens in July, but that's my prediction. Champions League final prediction officially is Real Madrid 2, Borussia Dortmund 1, and Real Madrid win the Champions League final. How did they get here? Well, if you remember, Borussia Dortmund, I counted them out because I didn't even have them go into the knockouts because in my group stage prediction, damn it. I had them going out behind AC Milan and PSG because I didn't have PSG winning the group anyway, which is impressive. But I really counted out Borussia Dortmund in some of the bigger matches. And I've done that a couple of times here in the Champions League. I don't think it would be. I think it would be a surprise if they come out and win the Champions League final. But don't really count out the true talented teams in something like this. The experienced team in the final, I think, comes out and wins it. I think it's going to be Real Madrid. It's playoff time in American sports and the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's where we'll be heading to next. We head across the pond to the Stanley Cup playoffs, which have been awesome. And let's break it down. So we will start in the East, which had a very strong game last night. A team that was under some problems in the last couple of games. We talked about it on Tuesday, how it's a must-win possibility for the Rangers if they want to have any chance of winning this. Well, it was 2-1 going to Tuesday night, and heading into tonight's episode, it's 3-2 Florida. Oh, how the tables have turned. Florida needed to win that game on Tuesday. I didn't really get to talk about the game. Actually, I didn't get to talk about the games on Tuesday because of the Premier League video. But I said it around here that the Rangers needed to win game 2, and they did. I didn't really get to talk about how these games could go. But Florida have looked the better team in every single one of the games after game 2. Florida's had the tenacity. Florida has been first to most pucks. Florida has had the better goaltending. Florida has had the fewer mistakes. And, might I add, Florida has had more shots. Florida has been everywhere. The Rangers have been struggling, and it's been showing in the last 2 games. How did we get here? Well, let's start with Tuesday. Because Sunday's game I didn't really get to watch it. It was pure chaos. The Rangers won 5-4 in an overtime thriller. To continue the trend of overtimes, the Rangers of Florida were 2-all at the end of Game 4's regulation. And a bad pass and a penalty on Blake Wheeler because he's literally a pylon out there, as some would say. I don't really believe that, but he's not the fastest thing in the world, so I can kind of see where they're coming from. Florida goes on the power play. It's a quick 1-2 right in front of goal. Game winner for Florida. They win. Florida then, last night, completely outmatched the Rangers for the 95% of this game. And the Panthers went 3-1 up after an empty netter. The Rangers scored with like 40 seconds left and gave the Rangers fans some hope. Unfortunately, the hockey gods did not want the Rangers to win. Fair play to them. And, well, the Panthers now lead 3-2. Now, I haven't said that I don't think this has been the greatest series ever, because I do believe the other series has been slightly better. This series has just been chaos, and it's kind of what you were hoping for. But it's not the chaos you would think. It's the Rangers either getting lucky or the Panthers just being better. I really don't think there's been a moment all series, maybe like a couple periods here and there, but there hasn't been a game where the Rangers have been truly dominant. Like you saw what they did in a couple of games against Carolina, the entire series against Washington, where the Rangers were truly dominant. You haven't seen that in this series really at all, because the Florida Panthers are the better hockey team. They played in a stronger division. They know what it's like to play tough opponents on the road and at home, and it's proving. And it's self-evident right here that the Florida Panthers, after struggling the first 2 one-goal games, have gone out and won the next 2 and could end the series on a Saturday night in Sunrise. And that will be a perfect way for that series to end. Now, what would be even more perfect is if this series could somehow go to a Monday night Game 7, which would be absolutely ridiculous. And I think that is a very big possibility. However, I think the Panthers will end this series tomorrow. I think the Panthers have been so good at home in the playoffs. They've just been so. They've pretty much like I said, outmatched the Rangers for the majority of the series. I think Florida ends it tomorrow. I think they'll end it after Game 6, which would set us up to probably be talking about the Stanley Cup Finals and changing the whole dynamic of the 100th episode, which would be kind of fitting. But there's been one series that I've called it better, and you might be looking at the scorelines and you're asking Robbie Basel, what the hell is wrong with you? How is this series better than the Rangers? Well, I'll tell you why. This series started off with Game 1 as like the longest game ever, and then like the second overtime started, and like 30 seconds later we had a winner. But the series continued, and despite the scorelines, Game 4 was terrible, but like the first 3 games were really good. The scorelines, it's been empty netters at the end. That's why it's 2-goal advantages. Game 2 was all right. Game 3 was great. But Edmonton's defense at times have really struggled. But the goaltending for Edmonton hasn't been that atrocious. Game 3 wasn't great, but here they are. All-level series heading into a Friday night in Dallas. Now, Dallas might be struggling with some injuries. We don't know the status of Chris Tanev. We'll see if he goes out on the ice tonight. He got injured at, I think, a little after the midway point of Game 4. I like Chris Tanev. He's been great in the defense. We'll see if he comes out and plays. But the Edmonton Oilers have really showed it to Dallas in Game 4. And I'm interested to see how they come out on the road in Game 5, because what we've learned in these playoffs, home ice advantage sometimes doesn't really make a difference. And this series, well, both series are kind of proving that. Like the battle for Canada, home ice really kind of did matter. But at the end of the day, I think Dallas wins tonight's game, but I do think this series will go to 7 games. And I think that'll be a major talking point on Tuesday if we have to talk about it. If I forget to talk about it, my prediction will be Dallas in 7. I think that Dallas wins tonight 3-1. I think Edmonton wins 4-3 on Sunday. I think Dallas wins 3-1 again on Tuesday. That's my prediction right now, but don't be surprised if Edmonton stuns everyone and wins tonight and then comes out and wins Sunday, because the duo of McDavid and Draisaitl, they've looked awesome. They've had a bunch of other players, Nugent Hopkins, Evan Bouchard, players like that who've really stepped up in the playoffs for the most part. Can they put it all together and advance out of the West? That would be something to watch out for. But we still have more to talk about, so let's keep it rolling. But like I said, I have Dallas going to the finals against Florida now because my Eastern team is already eliminated, which is unfortunate, but RIP to the Boston Bruins. I thought they're going to have that bounce-back season, but they didn't. And that sets us up to where these 2 series are. Which sets us up for an interesting thing in the NBA Finals. And we're actually going to do a light preview of this now. Well, we'll do the preview. We're going to do this preview right now. Screw it. Welcome to the NBA Finals. A finals that I didn't expect to start this early. And we tip off Game 1 on June 6th, which I believe is Thursday. Right? Is it Thursday? Yeah, it's Thursday night. Next Thursday. It's the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. I've been so wrong. I've been very wrong. I've counted out both of these teams. I counted out Dallas against Oklahoma City. I semi-counted out Dallas against Minnesota. But I don't know what to think about them here. On the flip side, I've counted out Boston pretty much from the start. Because if you remember, I had the Milwaukee Bucks coming out of the East. Unfortunately, they all got injured, and the Pacers won that series. What am I expecting? It's going to Boston. The Boston games are going to be wild. Kyrie Irving returning to Boston after he left years ago now, which is absurd to think about. But the Celtics just hasn't been all Jason Tatum like you would think. a big protagonist for this team has been Jaylen Brown. He won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP for a reason. He was awesome in that series and hit a lot of big shots against the Indiana Pacers, a series that really went down because Tyrese Haliburton got injured. Big theme with the playoffs for the Boston Celtics. A lot of the top players in those series all got hurt at some point. Miami, you talk about the Heat losing Jimmy Butler, the Cavs losing Donovan Mitchell, and the Pacers losing Tyrese Haliburton. You can talk about the similar run for the Pacers, because the Pacers run, you can argue, really, if you really look back at it, and I've taken the time to look more at it, has been more flawed. But the Dallas Mavericks run really isn't flawed at all. They beat the Clippers. They deserve to beat the Clippers. I know Kawhi got hurt, but the Clippers played well without Kawhi. None of the other teams really did out of the East. The Mavs then beat the inexperienced Oklahoma City Thunder. And then the Mavs outmatched Minnesota. Something that we really didn't expect. So it's the team that got through other squads via the injury, and a team that deserves to be here. Now, Dallas, you already know about Luka. You already know about players like Kyrie. But let's look at both of this even more. What was the big theme from the Dallas series? Other than Luka balling out like a madman. Well, Luka did ball out. That's very true. But a couple other players balled out as well. You talk about guys like Derek Lively, Derek Jones. Not this ad or this ad. I believe it was Derek Jones is who I'm thinking of. They have other solid players. PJ Washington, that's another one. It's just something you could look out for. That, yeah, I mean, they were all great. Daniel Gafford in the post. Just to throw out more names. They have a lot of solid players. It's not all just Luka. Like, look at Game 5. The Minnesota Timberwolves were getting ran off the court. And quite frankly, it wasn't close. Who were the big protagonists? Kyrie and Luka, of course. But you had games. I mean, Derek Lively's been great. He did not really do that much in this game. But you had Derek Jones struggle. He only had 5 points, but still played a lot. PJ Washington didn't have the greatest game. Daniel Gafford played all right. The depth on this team is really solid, especially going up against players like Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert and company. The depth on this Dallas team is pretty decent. And I think that could be one of the reasons why I would pick them to win this series. On the East side, we already talked about Jaylen Brown, but the weird thing for me is how Boston really played down to Indiana, and they've had to rally late against the injury-plagued, well, semi-injury-plagued Indiana Pacers team. And who's been great for them? Jaylen Brown at 29 in Game 4. Jason Tatum, you already know about him. Al Horford hitting some big shots at times. Derek White, Drew Holiday. They have a lot of strong players. And they really don't rotate that much. My expectation is that Dallas will be your NBA champion. That's the expectation. Because Dallas never was overmatched by the higher seed. Indiana, at some moments, you could have argued that they could have been level at 2 in this series with the Boston Celtics. I'm serious when I say that. Look at a couple of the big moments. Indiana turning the ball over. People missing calls at times. And Indiana some more careless mistakes. Erase those things. This is a 2-2 series, guys. And we would be talking about Game 5 for tonight. But luckily for the Celtics, luck is on their side, and they're still here. My expectation is Dallas in 6. But I wouldn't be surprised if Boston takes it all home. But knowing the teams and knowing what you could be seeing on the table and knowing that it's just not all a two-man show for Dallas gives me the feeling that it will be Dallas. They just have more than what Boston has in terms of depth, in terms of other scorers. Because if Jason Tatum's getting locked down by Luka, Jaylen Brown's struggling against Kyrie, who else is going to score for them? Derek White? Al Horford's not scoring 20 points when you need him. Who else is going to do it? On the opposite side, you have PJ Washington, who scored a lot of points. You have other forwards. Daniel Gafford will dominate in the post. The Mavericks have more depth than Boston does. So I'm going to say the Mavericks in 6. That's my NBA Finals prediction. It's the Mavericks winning my NBA Finals. I have the West still winning the Finals. I originally had the Nuggets over the Bucks, but unfortunately they're both out. So out of this series, I would say the Mavericks beating the Celtics in 6 games, and I would think Luka Doncic gets his first NBA championship. What a cool moment it would be too. Let us go to Roland Garros, and we finally get to talk for once about the French Open, which has been complete and utter chaos. Now, I know I did not make predictions for this, and I know I just had a lot on the plate, and I think just for once we'll sit back and watch this tournament play out, and I'll talk to you about some of the headlines. The surprises here. Let me look at a little bit better screen for this. Let's go over the first round, because this tournament started on Sunday. The big theme early on was dominance by some of the Americans. Mainly for me, one of the players I would have picked to win anyway in Tommy Paul. I loved Tommy Paul and what he could bring to the table. The skill set that he has would be perfect for Clay, and he really proved that in his first round match. You had Hubie Hurkacz, or Hurkacz. I'm trying to learn. I'm not good with the Polish names. I'm really struggling with some of the names here, chat. Forgive me for how bad I am at this. It's Seb Korda. You had a couple of the decent seeds lose, but you had the Battle of the Legends. The first one was Stan Wawrinka against Andy Murray. The second day, you had quarterfinalist from Wimbledon and Chris Eubanks fall to Yannick Sinner. Ben Shelton drops the opening set but wins. Francis Aguirre-Aliassime got a big win. Tsitsipas wins. Baez, you had a couple other Kachanov, the player from Russia, he won. I believe he's from Russia. Zverev beat Rafa Nadal in the possible final match at the French Open for Rafa. Cam Norrie, who's been really struggling recently, went out and lost in 5 sets. Tiafoe struggles early. Went 2-1 down, and you thought it was over, but not so fast for Francis. He goes out on a long 5-setter, comes out and wins. Cerundolo, Musetti, Tommy Paul, we already talked about. Shapovalov got the big win, but the key upset here was 6-seeded Thiago Monteiro, also losing his match. This is some more players who went out and lost. Tuesday, you had players also there was rain, so we had some of the delays. Other players who won, by the way, on Monday, just to mention some more. You had Medvedev and Gael Monfils, who he's still playing at his age. To continue this first round nonsense, we had Casper Ruud. He went out and dominated. D. Manure, Davidovich Fokina. Fritz, you remember Taylor Fritz? I believe that's his name. Yes, Taylor Fritz. Holger Rune, who's pretty solid. Bublik, another solid player, and of course Novak winning. The second round, You had Hurkacz, Ben Shelton got like the easiest win ever. Someone retired, unfortunately, due to injury, but Nishikori. Korda, Alcaraz, Rublev, no shockers. Yannick Sinner winning as well. Tiafoe falling to Shapovalov. The Canadians do it again. Gregor Dimitrov, who's been really strong this tournament. Medvedev won again. Zverev, Novak, Tommy Paul. Tommy Paul essentially won the first two matches by an average score of 6-1, like 6-1, 6-love, 6-2. He's dominated the first two rounds. Holger Rune, Demonur, the usuals. Bublik lost, which I thought was kind of weird. He got dominated by Struff. Bublik, who looked good the week before ish. Casper Ruud won. Malfe's lost. That was kind of sad. Fritz won. And that led to yesterday. Oh, this morning, where we had our first real upset. Well, we did have some rain that suspended some of the matches that we'll look out for tomorrow. The big upset was Arnaldi of Italy upsetting Andrei Rublev in the whatever round this is, the round of 32. So Rublev is gone. Yannick Sinner wins, but a lot of other good matches. You'd Seb Korda fall to Alcaraz. And tomorrow you have Demonur, Medvedev, Holger Rune, Fritz, Paul, Zverev, Casper Ruud. You've Novak against Musetti. That's a great matchup. And already matches known for the round of 16. We have Mute against Sinner and Arnaldi against Stefanos Tsitsipas. What a draw. I mean, this has been so much fun on the men's side. The big theme for me is how good some of these players have actually looked. You look at Hubie Hurkacz. You look at Ben Shelton, who, if you remember, Ben Shelton really made his name known on the world stage at the U.S. Open last year. Well, he's back, and he looks great on clay. He's looked really strong. His match is suspended. He's actually down a game against Agur Aliasime. Can the Canadians beat the Americans once again? I don't know. You have Dimitrov, who looks great as well. Of course, Alcaraz, who's looked great on clay in recent years. Players to watch out for me, of course, it's Novak. It's going to be Novak until he loses. But Tommy Paul's dominance is really something I like to see. He's ranked 14th, but I feel like with the clay, he's looked so strong. Demonur, possible upset candidate. We'll look at the draw as we head to the third round. We'll look at the draw right now. Tommy Paul's next match would be against Novak Djokovic. If there's any player in the top half of the draw that I think could beat Novak, it's probably going to be Tommy Paul in his dominant run he's had. Casper Ruud, his next match would probably be against Taylor Fritz if both of them win. Holger Rune going up against Zverev as a possible fourth round tie would be great. Medvedev, he's going to be possibly playing the winner of the match with Demonur. We already know about Arnaldi and Tsitsipas. Ben Shelton, if he wins, I think Ben Shelton could upset Alcaraz. That would be a fun match. Also, Aliasime will be serving for the first set against Ben Shelton tomorrow morning. Hurkacz, 2 sets up on Shapovalov. They will play the winner of the match with Dimitrov. And on the bottom, we already know our matchup with Yannick Sinner against Mute. So the men's draw has been absolutely ridiculous. How about the women? Because we talk about both of them here, and I do know a good amount of women's tennis. So let's talk about the first couple of days of the women's draw of the French Open. Now, the women's draw hasn't been as chaotic. You had the returning Naomi Osaka, Sophia Kenin, Caroline Garcia, the usuals coming out and winning matches here. Not a lot of names you would know on the first day. The Americans were Samsonova won her opening match. Iga Swiatek, Ons Jabeur, Coco Gauff. Like names, Danielle Collins, who's been really strong out of the United States. The Svitolina, Maria Sakkari was the first one to fall, and I was really I haven't been shocked. Every time like you have hope for Maria Sakkari, she finds a way and loses. It's kind of like Duke, or it's actually not a good comparison. What's a team that think of your team that think of the Boston Celtics from years ago. Like they have a lot of hope, and a lot of people will pick them, and then they fall. It's kind of like what you see here with Miss Sakkari. And to continue the first round, Sorry, I just need my drink again. Rybakina, you remember her? She's ranked 4th. Blankova Sabalenka, who's won the previous major. Madison Keys, who I've always been a fan of out of the United States. Azarenka, Irani. Sloane Stevens got destroyed, and same like Katie Boultier. And then the next round, you had Sofia Kenin beat Caroline Garcia. But the match I watched was Swiatek struggling against Naomi Osaka. Naomi Osaka, who has been great in majors in the past. Osaka was up 5-2 in the third set and lost 5 straight to fall to Swiatek. It was ridiculous. It was a great match, though. Despite it, we had Coco Gauff win as well. Yesterday, we had Badosa. You had a couple of names you might know. Sabalenka and Rybakina, Svitolina. Danielle Collins was lost, which was very uncharacteristic. Madison Keys and Mertens, and a couple others you might know won as well. Andreescu, if you remember Andreescu. That set up our matches for today. You Coco Gauff win again. That really was the only. Sofia Kenin lost. Ons Jabeur won. Swiatek won. And a couple other players won as well. Sets up your draw on the women's side as something pretty special. The 4th round is set pretty much for the women. You still have some 3rd round matches to play because they didn't get the jump on the court today. If you want a match to watch out, a couple of matches to watch out for, you got Mertens against Rybakina, 25th seeded Mertens and Rybakina. I think it's 12 o'clock local time on one of the main courts. You'll probably see that on one of the main networks. You have Navarro and Keys, the Battle of the Americans. Madison Keys possibly facing Sabalenka. It's a fun possible draw because both of them play a completely different style. You have the big hitting Sabalenka against the strength of the slice with Madison Keys or Navarro. And other spots, you have a ton of variety. It's a big variety, honestly. But you've Gauff, Jabeur, some of the names you'll know, Vondrasova, Swiatek, they're all still here. The women's draw has been great as well. It's been a lot of fun. To finish up our day, we will recap the F1 Monaco GP, as well as talk about the upcoming Canadian Grand Prix. So, Monaco kind of sucked for like 90% at the end. Lap 1, we had a crash. So that saw the end of Sergio Perez and both Hasses, because both Hasses got disqualified. Technically, Logan Sargent made it out of Q1. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. But to continue the theme, both Hasses didn't make it past turn 3. So, I'm just going to get you. I need more of the drink. Kimi Räikkönen would be proud of me for that. For his like famous lines of like, the drink. Give it to me. But back to the racing. After that early crash, nothing else really happened. Because there was a red flag. It took like 40 minutes to repair the wall. And then nothing happened. Yeah. Leclerc wins the Monaco GP and is the first Monegasque to win the famous Monaco GP. He deserved to win it because he didn't screw up. He didn't go on a wall like an idiot. He did everything right. Piastri gets a big podium. But the one thing that I think screwed everyone was Sainz being allowed to go back to third. Because Carlos Sainz, earlier on in the lap 1 crash, picked up some minor damage and locked up and went off the road. It was possible on the restart that he would be 15th or 16th. But because of the rules, and I actually now really thinking about it more, it kind of makes sense at the same time because we didn't finish like a sector. Not all the cars finished one sector. He was allowed to go back to third. Had to repair his car. Went back to third, held on to third, and prevented Lando Norris from getting third. Max Verstappen finished in 6th out here. Hamilton 7th. Tsunoda Albon gets the first points of the season for Williams. More importantly, one of the few overtakes of the race, you had Logan Sargent overtaking Zhou Guanyu. You had Bottas overtake Sargent, and Lance Stroll not doing anything. Let's take a look now at the standings, and let's talk about Canada next. In the standings, Max Verstappen leads by only, get ready with me here, chat, 31-point difference through 8 races. I did not say that last year. I'm loving this. This season's been complete chaos. I'm all for it. And speaking of chaos, we're going to Canada, which, hello, we're going to Montreal to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Yes, I do know how to say the name right. But quickly back to the standings. The top 10 is Max, then Leclerc. Lando Norris is 22 points behind Leclerc. Carlos Sainz is 4th with Perez in 5th. The questions about Sergio Perez are back. Piastri 6th, then the 2 Mercedes. Fernando Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda are complete the top 10 of the drivers' standings. Quickly update on the team's standings, the constructor standings. Red Bull is killing everyone, or so you think. Red Bull only has a 24-point lead over Ferrari. McLaren is not that, as like 70 points off of that. And then there's a big drop off to everyone else. But more importantly, there's still one team that has yet to score a point. So the questions need to be asked. Back to the upcoming race. Welcome to Canada. Oh wait, my mistake. Canada's next week. So there's your Monaco GP recap. Not a lot happened. Canada's next week. My mistake, ladies and gentlemen. I thought Canada was this week. Canada's next week. There's your sneak preview. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I'll have to wait one more week because I thought it was June already. June weather is in the air in New York, and it made it feel like June for me. More sports to come. 100th episode is Tuesday. F1, Champions League, international ball. We talked about Greenland today. Like all of those random topics you can think of and much more upcoming on the Robbie Basel show next week. For now, I'm Robbie Basel saying thank you for watching and so long. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, everyone.